Hello, welcome to the peachiest podcast around. Pshhh, everyone has crafting and chatting here, you know? And we are probably not committed to the title, time will tell. Hi, my name is Crash of rapidpeach.
And I am Kersey Barrett-Tormey of @MadeByKersey on
Haha.
all platforms except for Twitter.
I'm still on Twitter, but only because I don't know how to log into my Twitter account. What are we talking about? Or how are you, Kersey? It's been a while because we didn't post a podcast last week.
Took a little bit of a break for Thanksgiving there.
Yeah. And you traveled, yeah?
Well, I did. I traveled back home. I had a really good time with the family. I got to see a lot of friends. It's, like when you travel, it's like your plans have to be so ingrained in everything that you do
Yeah.
that you don't really get time for yourself, especially if you're traveling back home.
Yeah.
But I was able to get some me time.
That's so
And
good.
yeah, I mean, like, I was really excited to do the podcast while traveling, and then I realized I left all of my equipment back home.
No worries. When you said you were traveling, I was like, we're probably not doing the podcast. So when you said we weren't, I was like, I don't know when you think we're going to have time, but okie dokie.
And also
And then we didn't have time, and I was not surprised.
yeah, totally. Yes, and thank you for letting me ask all of the questions about the volcano when you didn't have a lot of information.
Oh, I mean, you knew more than
about
I did. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Mauna Kea, which is a volcano on the Big Island of Hawaii, erupted. I am not on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I had next to zero information about the eruption. Kersey texted me first thing in the morning at 3 a.m. my time, but I didn't see it until I woke up. That was like, oh my gosh, there's a volcano. Are you okay? And I was like, what? So it was very much not on my radar. You knew a lot more about it than I did, Kersey.
My favorite text thread right now is the one where I was like, did you see it? And you were like, no, it's on a different island. Did you hear it? No, it's on a different island. Do you see the smoke? No.
I was like, it's 200 miles away from me. I don't see or hear anything.
And then you had to send me the visual.
Yeah. I couldn't think of a better way to just be like, I don't know. It's funny living on an island, especially on an island chain. I know you know a bit about Hawaii. You've known multiple people who have lived here. Have you visited?
I have.
Yeah.
A long time ago though.
Yeah, okay. But
I think Obama was still president.
Okay, yeah, it was a while ago. Sad. You should come out again, But anyway,
Yeah.
It's a fun experience living on an island, and especially an island chain, because especially when people don't know anything about it, the questions you get are just astoundingly hilarious. Yours were not that funny. They were just yeah, I just don't know. But I've gotten messages in the past so you can circle all of Hawaii in an hour, right? And it's what do you mean? First off, not my island, but second off, what do you mean all of Hawaii?
Right.
And I've had multiple people ask me do I need to bring my passport? And what do you pay with? And stuff like that. And it's just we it's not all puka shells and dolphin rides here, bro. But anyways, fun stuff. No, I didn't know anything about the volcano, but the pictures over the past couple days especially have been so cool, right?
Oh my God.
I'm just happy no one's been
Volcanoes
displaced or hurt
so...
or anything, but
Absolutely. And I'm really happy to hear that too.
yeah.
Yes, and volcanoes are cool.
Volcanoes are so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
I just well, let's get into what we're talking about.
Okay.
And I think this can be a good transition, which today, as promised, we're talking about ADHD. This is going to be kind of a personal journey, but also I think that hopefully a lot of people can relate to it.
I do have one other quick thing to say before we start on the actual topic, though.
Do it.
Which is, you piqued my interest in a previous episode, and I watched Bridgerton. And I'm gonna let you know, okay? The first season, I loved it. It was so
Really?
good. I love period pieces. Like, I think that they're
Yeah.
super duper fun. That's like my deal is like period pieces just in general. But no, I really, really loved the first season. I didn't care for the second season as much. It was still okay, but like I thought it was weird. We don't have to talk about it all today. Maybe I'll talk about it in another episode. But I watched it because you were like, I hate watched it. And then I was like, I want something to hate watch. And then I watched it and I was like, I just love it. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, you go into it. You know what? Let's not even talk about ADHD. Let's
no,
talk
I want
about
to talk about
Bridgerton. No,
ADHD.
I want to talk about Bridgerton now.
For the whole episode?
But did you watch the whole seasons?
Yeah, I
Both the
watched both of
seasons?
them.
Yeah, dude. It is. I think that what makes it good is the fact that you don't have to overthink anything at all. Because so much of television now is like looking for clues and looking for the background and
Oh
looking for
no, I mean
the
it's not
references
a
to other
thinker
things.
this show.
No,
No.
you don't have to. You don't. You can literally just watch people stumble over themselves and enjoy it.
Yeah. And like it's
Yeah.
fun for the fun costumes and dancing and silly gender roles and stuff. I like it. I think it was super fun. Um,
Ew.
yeah, no, I loved it, man. The first season at least I loved. I thought the way they went into the second season was weird. Like it was
Yep.
okay that it wasn't a continuation of the story with all like it was the same characters, but it wasn't just about like Daphne and the Duke, whatever his name was, Simon.
I think
Um,
it's like the books are like they follow another Bridgerton every
Yeah,
book,
and that's what they did in the
which is
show. And like I get that and I think
yeah.
it's kind of cute. I thought it was weird that in the second season they made Anthony the one that was like I don't do relationships and I don't need love because in the first season he had his mistress and wanted to run away with her and I was like, "What do you mean you don't do love? You did for an entire first season."
It's
So I
true.
thought that
You
was
don't-
weird.
I thought it was weird. This is an adult show, right? We put like
Yeah.
adults only listen to this. Okay. The scene that creeped me out in the first season is when the girl didn't know how to masturbate. And the guy had to like tell her
That's like
how to
real
masturbate.
though for the time.
Really?
Oh yeah. At least in like the
Really?
UK during like what was that Georgian times?
Georgian.
Georgian times?
Georgian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like no, that was like kind of a thing. They were like kept real in the dark. At least in the upper classes, yeah.
I don't know much about the history. I just was like, I mean, nobody taught.
You kind of figure
Any,
it out, you know?
yeah, yeah. This is not something that like you need to be, but really, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But also consider like they were really young. Let's see how old it said Daphne Bridgerton was. Hold on.
She looks like 15.
Yeah, I
She
know
looks like
she's
15,
super
16.
young. Age. Okay, the actress. That doesn't help. She's supposed to be 22. That's like not accurate to when people were getting married. By 22, she'd be like old, not just coming out into society. Like when you read like Jane Austen, for example, which is a slightly different
love Jane
time.
Austen.
Me too. But like her debutantes coming out into society are like 15 to 17 more often
Yeah.
than like 21, 22, you know? I think in Pride and Prejudice, like Elizabeth Bennet is like 19 or something, 19 or 20, and she's like, I won't admit to my age. I'm really, really old, you know? So like there's an element of like very young naivete perhaps to why she wouldn't know what to do. I did think it was just like real sexy the whole show, the first season. I thought the casting of like Simon especially was just delicious. So I was down for it. I was like, yeah, teach me what to do.
I'm so glad that you brought up Jane Austen
Yeah.
because I have this running theory,
Mhm.
which is, of course, like to our listeners, if you have not read a Jane Austen book,
Oh, please do.
stop this episode, just find it. It's free. It's free on YouTube and like Spotify, you
Mm-hmm.
can find Pride and Prejudice and just listen to it.
Seriously, Pride and Prejudice is the best book of all time.
It's hilarious.
It's so good.
It is so funny. And I think what Jane Austen did is that her weapon was satire.
Oh,
Her
definitely.
weapon was
That's like her whole
absolutely
shtick.
satire.
Yeah. Her
I
whole
feel
shtick
like,
is just like gender norms are dumb, people are stupid, I'm gonna write shit because I think
classism.
it's fun, classism is weird. And reading it,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, all these people are like really dumb and classism is weird. And she's like in her grave going, haha, told you.
And then I feel like Bridgerton kind of takes that and was like, we'll do it, but we're going to romanticize it.
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of undoes the commentary that I think Jane Austen worked so hard and so subtly
Yeah, I
and
think
so
Bridgerton is definitely
perfectly to do.
closer. Bridgerton is definitely closer to like Downton Abbey in that regard, where it's like
Yeah.
it's very straight faced. Like, no, this is how we live our lives, and you need to conform to it. And I love Downton Abbey also. Downton Abbey is like one of my favorite shows of all time. So it's like nice to have more things from that era. But yeah, like Downton Abbey and Bridgerton definitely play it closer to like, no, we've got to actually follow these rules. Whereas Jane Austen is like, rules? What rules? Ha 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 ha, chaos.
Well, chaos and be kind.
And be
But
kind.
there's also, I think what Jane Austen did is that she took stories that was so prominent at that time, which was you had to get married to get your dowry, which was it's just like an awful thing to experience.
Yeah.
Not have your own autonomy.
Mm-mm.
And um, she was able to tell stories where not necessarily there was a woman fighting for her autonomy. She definitely wanted to fall in love and get her bounty,
Kind
essentially.
of. Kind of.
But the way she writes the characters,
Yeah.
the mother in Pride and Prejudice, who is so hyper focused on getting all of her daughters married to the point of annoyance, is just so funny.
Oh yeah.
So
So
funny.
I also recently watched Persuasion. It's like the Netflix original Persuasion. That has the main character is the actress that it's Dakota Johnson. There we go. I was gonna say she's the one in 50 Shades of Grey, right? It's Dakota Johnson, and like Persuasion, which is also a Jane Austen film, phenomenal, so good. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to read that book now for sure. I'm doing movies because I feel like movies are gonna be a little bit more accessible for a lot of people than books. The Jane Eyre, no, is it Jane Eyre? No. It's Emma, the Emma movie also that has, what's her name in it?
That lady who looks like she has almond eyes, and she was also in the movie about
Anya
chess,
Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, she did drugs to get good at chess, and then she overcame the drugs.
Yes.
Still good at chess.
Queen's Gambit, that's what it's called. Like those are those are such good movies. Oops.
Dude, let me just say, the best movie of any Jane Austen adaptation, and there's a lot of them. They became really popular in the 90s. That's when it was like it was the second wave of feminism. I think people were rediscovering her writing as much as wanting to act in these movies and in these now plays. There's even Bollywood movies.
Yeah, there are.
Of Jane Austen's work. The best one, by far, is Clueless.
Oh, definitely.
Clueless is by far the best one, and I will tell you why. Because all the other Jane Austen adaptations are romance films. They're not satires. They're not making commentary on anything.
Right.
Clueless is a satire. It is one of the greatest satire pieces of film, in my opinion.
Can I tell you something very silly about Clueless in my personal life history?
You have to now.
Okay. When I first watched Clueless, like the first time when I was like a kid watching Clueless, I got like 4 minutes in and I was like, not for me. But then I just recently went and watched it again, like this year at some point. And I, all this time, have thought that it was a murder mystery. I'm gonna let you know how confused I was waiting for the murder. And then subsequently disappointed and pleased because it was not a murder mystery, but it was a great film instead. Like,
When
I
Brittany
probably
Murphy's
went...
character gets held over at the mall, were you like, this is the one who dies? Is this when somebody dies?
Definitely. Seriously, Kersey, I think I got 40 minutes into the movie before I was like, this isn't a murder mystery. And I don't know what in my, like, 8-year-old head told me it's called Clueless. That means there's going to be a murder, because I used to play Clue all the time with my grandparents.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That makes, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm validating you in your 8-year-old mind for being smart enough to think.
My 8-year-old mind that's stuck in my head until I was 28 watching the movie for the first time. But it is genius. It is so good.
Yeah, and for people who are listening to this, Clueless is based off of that one with the almond-eyed girl. What was that?
Emma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like she's a matchmaker. It doesn't work out the way she wants it to. She's not interested in finding love. Oh my gosh, she does find love. Everybody's happy in the end. And the matchmaker with the original plan goes better than, like, the original person's love goes better than the one that she was trying to create, to fabricate.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's so good.
Yeah. I have yet to read Emma. The book that I love the most out of all of Jane Austen's work is Pride and Prejudice.
Me too.
I also love the movie with Keira Knightley.
The 2005 Pride and Prejudice is it's an impeccable work. I would say it's a perfect movie. Genuinely, I would say it's a perfect movie. And, like, I watch a lot of movies, and I love many, many, many movies, but, like, it is perfect. There is nothing wrong about that movie.
It is a romance film and not a satire.
That's okay, though. It's really good.
Here's the one scene that I wish that they would have changed to be a little bit more in line with the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, what's his face? Why am I forgetting so many things right now?
Because it's been a day.
Yeah, it's been a day. It's been a day.
Mr. Darcy?
Mr. Darcy, when he's telling her that he's in love with her.
Yeah.
And the reaction from her is like, in the movie, they're in a gazebo, it's raining, she's yelling at him, he's yelling back at her. At one point, it looks like they're gonna fuck. It looks like they're about to
they're gonna,
take
like,
off their
hate
clothes.
kiss for a second there, definitely.
Yeah, but in the book, it's so much better because he's telling her these things and she's just has this, like, are you fucking kidding me reaction, which I love.
I think they do that better in the show, in the Pride and Prejudice show with, what is his name? Prejudice show. Colin Firth and Jennifer Ailey from 1995. I think they do that scene. They play it better in that show, but, like,
they also had more time to draw out.
They had a lot of, like, a whole season to do it. Yeah, not just like 2 hours. But I don't know. I love a romance movie though. So for me, I'm like, hell yeah, romance, more of it.
Well, they were also had that weird scene though where he, like, starts, like, swimming in his pond for no reason.
Right. Well, that's what happens in the books, though.
Up with him. That didn't happen in the book.
Yeah, it does.
With his shirt all clinging to his body.
Yeah, that happens in the book.
And she's like,
that happens in the book. When she's at Pemberley And it's not that he's late. He came back earlier than expected, but he had gone for like a swim. So he walks up on her all like wet and covered in lake. And she's like, I've never seen a man wet and covered in lake before, but damn, I like what I see. That happens in the book.
I don't remember that. That's very Bridgerton.
It's so Bridgerton. That literally happens in season 2 of Bridgerton.
Oh my god.
I know.
All right,
no, I eat this shit up. It's so good.
This is very unstructured. I'm going to ask you some questions now.
I'm ready for questions.
What do you prefer? Bridgerton or the 2005 Pride and Prejudice?
2005 Pride and Prejudice, hands down.
Okay. And then, what are the most significant differences that we haven't talked about yet between Bridgerton and Jane Austen?
Let's say, like, first off, I'd say the element of, like, so the classism is there in both of them, but it's which station of the class. So, like, in Bridgerton, it's the highest society can go. Like, the queen is there in every episode. Like, dukes are involved, princes are involved, viscounts are involved. Like, that's the highest level of class that they had, versus in, like, Pride and Prejudice specifically, it's still misters. Like, it's lords and ladies and misters and misses, but it's not, like, duke, viscountess, all that shit. So, like, the level of class is significantly different there. And that has a lot more play on, like, what the characters are interested in, I guess, or like what, like, one of the big things that Elizabeth Bennet says to, like, Mr. Darcy is like, oh, you broke up my sister and your friend because you thought she was after his fortune. Meanwhile, he makes £5,000 a year, which, like, is like £40,000 today or something. So it isn't insignificant, like, just on investments, you know, but, like, that's nothing compared to a duke, who, like, in Bridgerton, who has, like, a whole damn thing going on, you know? Simon Bridgerton yearly income. Give me a moment, because I think they say it in the show at some point.
They make a ton of money.
They make so much money. It's like in the millions for them.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's okay, I'm not finding it immediately. Anyways, doesn't matter. It's fine. But, like, just that station of class is very different. So they're going to be able to exercise themselves a little bit differently. I don't know if you remember, like, at one point, at the first assembly in Pride and Prejudice, what's her name? Charles's sister, Miss Bingley, leans over to Mr. Darcy and is like, "We're a long way from Grosvenor Square, are we not?"
Yeah.
And, like,
and
Grosvenor Square is where they were conducting all of their mating rituals in Bridgerton, for lack of a better word. Like, so it's like they're referencing it. So it's not that they're, like, unknown in society and all of that, but, like, they're still in the country hanging out.
Yeah, that's when Mr. Darcy gives the line, "Any savage can dance," in which I just do not find him, or why anybody finds that person attractive. It's just so
okay, here, let me tell you something, though, and this actually goes so perfectly to our ADHD talk today. Perfect, we found a through line. Mr. Darcy, I find him ridiculously attractive. And I'll tell you what,
Why?
Kersey, it's because he has ADHD. That's why
doesn't.
he's so weird. Yeah, he's on the spectrum. This is like, I'm 100,000% sure he's on the spectrum. He has trouble communicating with people he doesn't know before. He's, like, kind of aloof. He lives in his own world. He's very blunt.
Yes.
When Miss Bingley and Elizabeth are walking around the room, he's like, you can have two motives. It's either to talk about something and I don't know what you're talking about, or it's because you want to look sexy and I can look at you right here and see that you're sexy. Like, he's blunt. He doesn't know how to talk to people. He's aloof. He has ADD or ADHD or autism. He's on the spectrum somewhere. And for me, Kersey, I'm going to let you know, I really like that in a partner. Like, a number of people that I've dated have been on the spectrum. I dated someone with Asperger's. My husband right now has ADD. Like, I've talked to people previously who were on the spectrum somewhere, but I'm not sure where. For me, I genuinely, and a lot of my friends are on the spectrum, and I like the like methods of communication a little bit more. Like, and I think ADHD brains are a lot more fun to deal with than like normie brains. Probably because I'm also neurospicy. I just, have like OCD instead.
Aw.
So, like, for me, Mr. Darcy
is a great line.
Oh, I love neurospicy. No, for me, Mr. Darcy is like hunk. Like, absolute hunk zone delicious.
Also, and another one of my friends pointed this out,
Mm-hmm.
is he represents a man who can change his mind.
Which is also just written for the female gaze, am I right?
Yeah, that's how low the bar is.
That's how low the bar is. Is like,
That's how
oh,
low
he
the bar is.
listened to the things that bothered you and got better? Wow.
Yeah,
That's one
Yeah.
hell of a man.
yeah.
But no, like, that leads into
Yeah, well, now you're
ADHD.
kind of blowing
It
my
was a
mind
thing
with
back
the whole-
then too.
Totally, and it's definitely not a new thing. And um, there are so many different uh, ways of symptoms of neurodivergence.
Oh, totally.
He almost, I want to say, has the the symptoms that are usually displayed differently because they say that symptoms display differently in girls than boys,
Mhm.
and he definitely has the one that's different for girls.
Mhm.
Mhm. Um, because he's not hyperactive in any sense.
Hypoactivity is a thing, though.
Except for he jumps in the water for no reason when he wants to go for a swim with all his clothes on.
Hypoactivity is a thing too, though. Like, there are two
yeah.
different kinds, hyperactivity and hypoactivity. And like different ones display in different people for whatever reason, and like they're both just part like ways that ADD, ADHD, autism spectrum, everything can show itself, right? So
Yes.
not everyone on the spectrum is like hyperactive, ready to go. Let's do the thing. Let's jump in the water. There's also like long periods of rest,
I have another question.
Yes.
If Bridgerton is the fan art of Jane Austen's work, especially Pride and Prejudice,
Mhm.
then like let's assume that the Viceroy, the eldest Bridgerton, is essentially the double character for Mr. Darcy.
Oh, I don't think so.
He does not have ADHD.
No, I don't think so. Especially not in the first season. In the first season, he's just a fuck boy. I think they call him out really well in the first season. Like, the opera singer is like, "You're just trying to pull me along. Fuck you, dude." And I'm like, yeah, because that's all he is. He's a fuck boy. In the second season, I'm like, why did you try to make him anything but the fuck boy? Like, I don't understand that at all. I do think they should have made the second brother just gay.
Yeah, I thought he was gay.
I thought he was too, and then he was like, "Oh, my friend is gay. That's not me."
Yeah, but he wasn't the gay character because I thought they were the same person for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's really, really hard to tell them apart from that show.
Yeah, all the white guys look the same, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Which is like
definitely took me on the second viewing to be like, oh, you're not that guy. But yeah, I was excited about one of the Bridgertons was gay when he wasn't gay. It was just his friend.
I'm still gonna hold out hope for like the youngest Bridgerton, because isn't that a thing? Like, the more kids you have, the more likely the younger ones are gonna be gay.
Is that true?
I think so.
No. Interesting science.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where to go. You really struck me with that he has ADHD thing.
It's right though? You see it, right?
Yeah, I'm going through all these scenes in my head.
And it's starting to suddenly be like, oh, hey. Let's
Right.
make that our podcast. Is Mr. Darcy on the spectrum? Kersey, tell us what you know about ADHD, and by the end of it, we'll have figured out if Mr. Darcy is on the spectrum.
Here's the thing, man. I'm still learning about ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And my ADHD is much more different than Mr. Darcy's.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mr. Darcy, I kind of feel, has this, like, rigidness. Because, I mean, so much of back then was just, like, rigidness and structure.
Yeah.
And you have to abhor to these terms of society because that is the deal that we make with society. And I think that maybe, like, I can imagine Mr. Darcy having a really hard childhood where he doesn't want to necessarily, he wants to move around and he is very hyperactive, but he may not have gotten the chance to be that.
Right.
Because he was taught.
And instead goes very
really,
hard in
really
the other
bad.
direction.
Yeah, and he doesn't like that mom character at all. He thinks that she's just annoying.
Yeah, and she doesn't like him either. She, like, openly disses him.
Yeah. He doesn't like her for her character and who she is. And maybe, like, and this might be just me projecting onto the character, but maybe he just sees something in her that he wished that he could have.
Maybe.
Yeah. That is something to think about. So, when I was growing up, I was diagnosed in, like, the 3rd grade. And it is the most boring process to be diagnosed for ADHD. Let me tell you. It's a 6-hour test. And I know. And it requires so much focus and attention. And you have to sit still for the entirety of the test. I thought the only way that I, like, made it, like, more entertaining, and this is a true story, is that I was actually removed from the class, and this guy, he was some sort of specialist, and he, like, found a space in the auditorium, which is this huge, huge room that, like, is so big, and it's just us in the auditorium, and he's asking me these really, really, really boring questions and making me do these really, really boring tests. So I was just like, I'm going to, in my mind, pretend that this is actually a secret alien, and these are alien tests that I have to perform.
If you'd said that out loud, he would have been like, oh, we can just stop the test right now.
Oh, God. I think what's so annoying about the test, and I was actually, like, I was talking to my therapist, and I was like, maybe I should be medicated, and she was like, well, before you go there, you should know that the test is 6 hours long. And I was like, oh, right, I remember that now. I remember that now. And you really, like, it's almost inconsiderate to the person who has ADHD.
Yeah. It's like a see how much you squirm test.
It's not necessarily how much you squirm, it's how much information you can retain.
Yeah.
What you hyper-focus on. There's visual tests, there's audio tests, there's written tests. It's just a lot of boring alien tests if you got abducted by an alien and he gave you the most boring test in the world. That's what it is. That is what it is. I am now just learning what it means to have ADHD. And a lot of that is TikTok, Crash. A lot of that is TikTok and the information that these kids are sharing about it. One, I did not know it was called neurodivergent until 2021.
Right.
Two, I did not know that it was, in my mind, and how I was taught about it, was your mind is not as intelligent.
Oh, that's not the case at all, though.
Exactly, and you can't sit still.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two things. I got real good at sitting still. I had to. And I just started, like, daydreaming a lot instead of running around. And two, I am now just learning, and this is actually something I wanted to talk about, is multitasking is so much easier to get things done. You can do so much. Like, and I'm not just saying, like, oh, let's put on Bridgerton in the background and make dinner.
Right.
I'm talking about, like, I can listen to an audiobook and read a book at the same time.
Ah, my brain.
Yeah. I listen to a fantasy book like Lord of the Rings, and I'll read, like, a nonfiction book at the same time. and I can jump in between the two
That's so
really, really quickly.
cool.
It's so much nicer and it's so much easier because whenever I was in a classroom setting and somebody was talking at the front of the room, it was so hard for me to focus because I need to be doing two things at the same time to focus.
Right.
Um, and there's a lot more that I'm still learning about it. I kind of want to tie this a little bit more into what we're talking about with Bridgerton and Jane Austen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and I mean, another thing that I'm learning about is that there's so many different like fields of neurodivergence.
Right.
And I think, can I just say something that like some kids would show hyperactivity and they would be put into like a genius section while the other kids got put into resource. Let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you, the cruelest thing you can do with a kid with ADHD is remove them from their classroom and then put them in a room where the idea was that you get additional help, but really you're just sitting there.
Right.
Those special ed teachers they don't do much.
Mm.
Like it's a sad truth, but it's the truth. That's not saying that I don't love some of my special ed teachers, especially shout out to Mrs. Fredericks, who was just like, go to the art room. Thank you. That was
Right.
rad of you.
Well, and like I think
Yeah.
that that's so much of like the education system anyway, like whether kids are on the spectrum or not is like very rarely do you need to know how to do a lot of like the basic stuff. Like
Mhm.
add by yourself is like we do have calculators. You can teach a kid how to use a calculator and then you're done, right? But like you should be playing into children's interests a lot more because like a lot of how kids
Mhm.
learn is through play and through like getting excited about things. So like if you have a kid who really wants to be a vet, it's so much more important to like let them go to the humane society and hang out with dogs
Mhm.
and cats than it is to like make them sit down and learn geography. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bridgerton, is I don't think our education system has really evolved much since then
It hasn't.
because we are still teaching kids to sit down and be quiet
Yep.
and listen
Yep.
instead of play.
Yep.
I don't think Mr. Darcy got to play, which is why Mr. Darcy's life is really sad, no matter how rich he is.
Yeah. That's why he lives in the miserable half of Derbyshire.
Yeah. Um,
No,
but I'm
I think
always
you're
like really
right.
excited to like learn more about how um, time works when you have ADHD, how uh, um, emotions work when you have ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Can you
how
elaborate?
fast your brain is. Well, I'm gonna just say is that like for me, I didn't realize how fast my brain was moving until recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can say something and a switch will go off, and I might not be able to like speak so fluently back to you because my brain is already 10 speeds ahead of what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's why I almost like the podcast is really good because I'm really trying to work on interrupting. I'm so bad at interrupting. And I almost was like when I re-listened to the first episode, I was like embarrassed. I was like, and I texted you. I was
You
like, maybe
did.
we could do something fun where like I owe you a quarter every time I interrupt you,
And I was like, Kersey,
so
that's
that
kind
we
of the
don't.
point of a podcast, though.
It's hard, but I I mean just to reorganize my thoughts around it is that like let's say you're really young and you're listening to this and you're in school and you've been diagnosed with it. They're going to teach you how to be more structured in the school system
Mm-hmm.
than they would how you're going to have to deal with these
Yeah, they teach you more
with
how to
your mind.
mask than how to like cope or find
Yeah,
like mechanisms
you're
that are going to
there.
work for you or how to like stim
Yeah,
if you need it and stuff like that, right?
my biggest trigger is like, especially like with anything emotional or like somebody will say something and suddenly I'll have an idea. The only way I can describe it is that like a giant tree grows out of my brain. all at once,
Mm-hmm.
like really, really quickly. And I have to figure out what part is a part of the tree, what part is a plant, what part is a useless weed, and then transcribe that into either a conversation, how I'm feeling in that moment, or uh, just trying to wrap my mind around topics
Right.
before it can become energy, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, kind of like working that into what we're talking about, like Jane Austen and Bridgerton and all these period pieces and stuff. Like, they're also like they're trying to navigate themselves in this bigger society and also find a partner. And there's
Yeah.
like a lot of pressure on that because of how they've been raised, but also because it can be difficult to like work someone into your brain space, especially if they don't have any previous like experience or knowledge of like what being with a partner on the spectrum could look like, you know? Can you imagine the extra bit
Yeah.
of strain that that must cause in these scenarios? Like,
Well, I don't think, I think that what makes Bridgerton and Jane Austen a little bit more approachable is that in the end, people do marry for love, which in
they do,
reality, I don't
though.
think that, but in reality, I don't think that the people of that time actually had that privilege. I think
Some
that it was
people
a
did.
lot
It
of,
wasn't as often, but some people did.
I think that it was just a lot of, you have to go with this person now.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I think that that in itself is what I have to keep in mind when watching something like Bridgerton is that the reality of what these people are experiencing, which is totally romantic and fun, and I'm usually turning off my brain to watch this
Mm-hmm.
or hate to watch it. But I think that the reality for a lot of the women and probably some of the men too was a really tragic one.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's probably why there was like such a big like mistress culture and stuff like extra lovers types culture, you know, is like
Yeah. And
things
I think
didn't
it
work
also
out, and so that was what they did.
it also fueled the popularity of the books in the Victorian era when I don't know when I don't know when people started marrying for love. When did that start happening?
uh, for I mean, always. I think your question is more like when did people stop focusing on marrying for love? Like when did it become more of an obligation? Um,
I,
to get married than like to find someone you wanted to be a partner with. I would definitely also argue like religion had a big play in that for a lot of people. And then also like, what's what I'm thinking of, like familial heirs. Like you didn't want to have a kid with the wrong person, and then you're like, especially up in like upper classes, right? You're like, you don't want to have a kid with someone, and then your heir like switches allegiance and gives your country to Spain or something. You know what I mean?
that funny story. So Queen Victoria had a bunch of kids and
Mm-hmm.
married them off to other countries because she was like, I've just created world peace
Right.
because all these kids are related. None of them will ever fight with each other. And then World War One happened because they were all
Yay!
kids.
That's just familial
I was
problems on a
listening to
global
some,
scale.
yeah, I was listening to some historian once. I think it was on the History Channel, and he was like, I could just imagine how sad she would be. And I was like, man, I can imagine how pissed she would be. Are you kidding me? She
Right.
like,
She's like, I did all this fucking work.
yeah, dude, it's not easy being like. She had like something like 11 kids, something like that.
Ugh, God no.
Yeah.
Just the body
Um.
problems, if nothing else.
Well, all right, ADD. We're gonna go back to it,
Do it.
which is, I really like this conversation. One, because we got to talk about Jane Austen and Bridgerton, and I love talking about Jane Austen and Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm.
And two, um, it does make me look at certain characters a little bit differently, especially Mr. Darcy,
You're
who
welcome.
didn't say I was attracted to him. Didn't
I
say I
didn't
was
say to
attracted
be
to him. Didn't
attracted
say
to
I
him. I'm
relate to
just saying, like,
him.
you can relate to him a little bit more now, right?
I can understand the idea of him a
Yeah.
little bit more. I understand the idea of Mr. Darcy a little bit more and more every time I talk about Jane Austen. My
Mm-hmm.
nose is so stuffy all of a sudden.
Oh,
Um,
I couldn't tell.
really? It doesn't sound weird?
Not through my phone speaker.
Okay. Yeah. I'm winding down, man. Um, should we talk about the craft that we were working on this week?
Yeah. What are you working on?
Well, I was really inspired by last week's conversation about to-do lists, and I made the three-tier to-do list where you do three things at the same time.
Yes. I've seen it. It's
Or,
beautiful.
yeah, I'm really, really happy with it.
I like it a lot. Did you change the colors or
Yeah,
did you end up keeping the same colors?
I think I want to do, I'll keep them the same because you like them so much. I'll do different.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do different versions. But if somebody wants to check out our Etsy and you can see it there, if you want to create your own, you're absolutely allowed to. But it's a really good system for getting things done.
Yay. Is that working well for you? Have you used it?
It is. I realize our podcast is becoming more of like an inspiration podcast
Yeah.
where we're talking a lot about like our issues about getting things done, our relationships to social media, like all of these different aspects that I think that are really important to being a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
Mm-hmm. I want to keep this trend going.
Let's do it then. I am just finishing up the embroidery from last week's episode now. That's like the upward spiral with the different moon phases. Right now I'm doing the waning moon. So I have 2 more to go after this and then I'll be all done.
Bridgerton. Yeah, dude, how perfect for our Bridgerton and Jane Austen episode.
To finish what we were doing before.
No, to work on embroidery, because that's what.
I guess that's very true. I want to. So
yeah.
I was going to do for this episode. I was gonna do like a cross stitch of like the ADHD butterfly. I think that's like the most common symbol for ADHD. But now we're talking about like Pride and Prejudice a lot, so I'm gonna make something for Mr. Darcy. I just don't know what yet. Have I told you I have a pair of overalls that I'm like putting patches onto? Have you seen them?
No.
Oh God, Kersey, you'd love it. But like one of the patches I have is of his like hand from the film. It's a whole thing. I'll send you a picture. But I'll do something for Mr. Darcy now for the ADHD podcast. And I'll let you know what it is next week once I've decided what it's going to be. That being said, for our Etsy, if anybody does want to get our art, you can snag it by going to PEACCHY Podcast Shop. So it's PEACCHY Podcast Shop on Etsy. I have all of my stuff ready to go from the last several weeks, so I'm just going to be posting the pictures of it and uploading it soon. So if you want to get any of my stuff, you can. And then I think yours is probably about ready to go too, right, Kersey?
Heck yeah, it is.
Cool. So yeah, we'll have new stuff posted up on there just in time for the holidays.
Yeah. But get them now if you want to get them as a Christmas present.
Yeah.
Because
this will be the best time to get them.
Very important. Yeah. Well, and what are we talking about next week, Crash?
I have no idea. It's going to be a complete surprise.
Oh.
Yep. We'll see what happens to me this week that I decide is so important we need to talk about it next week. I'm going to keep you all on your toes. Does that sound fun?
We very rarely talk about what we're going to talk about, too. Every time.
I know.
Every time.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I love it, though.
I'm actually really happy that we, like, took Bridgerton into ADHD world, though, because, like, I've been wanting to talk about my Mr. Darcy being on the spectrum theory for a while, and the only person I've had to talk to about it is my husband, and he does not care about, like, Pride and Prejudice at all, so he's been, like, kind of talking to a brick wall about it. So I was really happy to talk to somebody who knew anything about Jane Austen.
Please make him listen to this episode.
I will. I will. I will. I'll come back next week with his thoughts.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you. We hope you have a wonderful week. Again, you can follow us anywhere online except for Twitter for Kersey. All of my socials are at rapidpeach.
And I am at Made by Kersey.
And that's it for us. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Keep crafting, everyone.
Yeah, keep crafting. Keep crafting and chatting. Bye.
Keep crafting and chatting.
Bye-bye.